10 past the hour. 4 years ago today, and just about 6 weeks after the start of the war in Iraq, President Bush stood on the U.S. aircraft carrier Abraham Lincoln in front of a banner reading "Mission Accomplished" and declared an end to major combat operations in Iraq. When he gave that speech, 139 U.S. servicemen and women had already lost their lives in the war. That number is now more than 3,350, and critics, even within the president's own party, are asking when or even if his mission can ever be accomplished in Iraq. Joining us with some insight is retired Army Major and CBS News military consultant Mike Lyons. Good morning.
Good morning, Meg.
So can you answer that question? Can the president accomplish his mission?
Well, I'll tell you, the mission at the time was to, overthrow a dictator and take a broken state and try to, set it on the right path. So maybe the initial mission of rolling tanks into Baghdad and overthrowing that dictator was accomplished, but it really looks 4 years later that from a military perspective, we really haven't accomplished the mission, which is defining winning and losing.
So what's the mission now?
Well, two missions. We still have the counterinsurgency mission, the mission of going after al-Qaeda forces and the people that are looking to disrupt the government in Iraq, and those were part of the initial plan of why we said we were going to war in the first place. But then the second mission that the military has is protecting the Iraqi people, one of security. The plan had been now to have the Iraqi security forces take that security mission over. We would go on the counterinsurgency mission, but it just hasn't worked out. And for us to do both is virtually impossible.
Well, despite the recent troop surge, April was one of the deadliest months in Iraq. We've seen the troop surge, but do they have a strategic plan to get us out?
No, Meg, I think that right now everything is still very tactical. We've only added 20,000 troops. They're not even there yet. They won't be there till the end of June. We're going to see how that goes for a little bit of time. There's no real long-term strategic exit plan on how we're going to leave this country. Part of the reason why we're seeing the casualties right now is because really for the first time 4 years later, we're out trying to do the hold and build. We're trying to hold cities that we were giving up before. We're taking more casualties because we're out in the outskirts of these towns. We're not providing the same level of security for our soldiers. They're on a much more of a defensive posture. The enemy knows this. They attack us. We're having high casualties because of it.
Speaking of the casualties and getting up to speed with this recent troop surge, there have been a lot of investigations. One recently came out in Time magazine reporting that the soldiers are being trained too quickly and they're rushed over there. How dangerous is that, and is that happening?
Yeah, it's very dangerous considering the culture of the Middle East and the fact that, it's just nothing like we have here in the United States. If you were, a normal kid going to high school, going to college here, and you enlist to the military to go over and do that. It's not like the alphabet's the same. It is very, very difficult. We've applied, MBA type things of just-in-time soldiering, just-in-time manufacturing to warfare. It's not a good idea. They get over there, they're quickly immersed in the environment, and if they make a mistake the first time, it could be a very fatal mistake.
Is this basically the next president's problem?
Yeah, I think it is. I don't think this president is going to really do anything over the next 18 months to try to fix it from a strategic perspective. He's sure is not going to talk to the Syrians. He's not going to talk to the Iranians. He won't engage other countries, at least from an economic perspective. All he's focused on is winning from a military perspective, and I think that you can't win if we can't hold and build the country up. We've defined it so much in military terms.
Well, how has the insurgency changed?
How is the insurgency? Well, you've got a smarter enemy. You've got an enemy now that watches us, that looks at exactly what we're doing. They've got improved weapon systems. They know that they can't defeat us militarily from a great big perspective, but they could pick us off one at a time and kind of bleed us to death. It's from a war of attrition perspective, they're staying. The enemy is going to stay there. We're eventually going to leave, and they know that, so that's part of their tactics.
If the next president who comes into power brings in other countries in the region and they all start talking, how quickly could we see a resolution or a solution?
You can see it within 6 months. I think the important thing is the Iraqi people themselves, the Arab nations themselves accept it. I think you're going to have this as an Arab solution. The Egyptians are going to have to get involved, not just the Syrians and the Iranians. You're going to have to get other countries in the Arab world involved. This is really an Arab issue. Islamic fundamentalism is going to have to be defeated by Islam itself. This is a fact of that religion, that the people that are the good people are going to have to defeat the bad people in that religion.
We only have about 15 seconds left, but there's all this talk about a troop withdrawal right now. If that happens, how long will it take to achieve peace after that?
This enemy will know, and they'll be able to just wait us out, and you'll see tremendous upheavals in the region for many years to come.
All right, CBS News military analyst and retired Army Major Mike Lyons, thanks so much for being here.
Okay, thanks, Mike.
And we'll be right back.
one you love doesn't know he could be carrying many viruses. Fact, viruses can live on surfaces for days. Lysol disinfectant spray with the power you trust helps stop the spread of viruses. Use it on common household surfaces to kill dangerous viruses like the flu. Lysol is the #1 brand recommended by pediatricians. Lysol, disinfect to protect. Now Lysol has new, clean, fresh fragrances, including new garden mist scent.
I don't have time to worry whether my home smells fresh and clean. And since I heard about the new Airwick Freshmatic Ultra, I can rest easy. It automatically sprays a fresh burst of fragrance every 9, 18 or 36 minutes, so it's always working. And now when my husband takes his sneakers off, this new Freshmatic Ultra has a button for an extra burst of freshness whenever I need it. That's a centipede for you. Airwick. It's good to be home. And for smaller jobs, try Airwick Freshmatic Mini.
We're at Westminster Market to see how our best spray and wash formula works on tough stains.
You gotta have some stains if you're gonna work in a kitchen.
You hear about that volcano, Ketchup Katoa? It's like, whoa, hell! New spray and wash now has Resolve Power, so it removes tough stains the first time, guaranteed. Take a look.
That's amazing.
See?
The stain's gone. I can't believe you got it out.
It's an amazing product. Trust spray and wash, forget stains. And for stubborn dried-in stains, try spray and wash Dual Power.
Perfect.
Hi, Mom!
Ever wish you had the strength to quickly trap the little messes in your house? Fact, Lysol sanitizing wipes with new, stronger microlock fibers are made to trap and hold the messes. Now they clean baked-on grease better than Clorox wipes. Plus, Lysol kills 99.9% of germs and viruses. Now available in great value refill packs. Lysol, disinfect to protect.
Internet porn. Tens of millions of computer users visit the sites, and many actually get addicted. Mark did.
It's just you and the computer. There is no one to tell you no.
Tonight, why it happens and what one group is doing to fight back. If you have a computer, don't miss our series, Caught in the Web, on the CBS Evening News with Katie Couric.
Coming up, think you know Miami? Don't count on it, but you will when we take you behind the scenes of CSI Miami with stars David Caruso and Jonathan Togo on The Early Show. You're going behind the scenes of CSI Miami, coming up on The Early Show.
It's 17 past the hour. Top stories and up to the minute. President Bush is expected to use his veto pen today to kill a bill funding the war in Iraq on the 4th anniversary of his so-called mission accomplished speech. The bill, which passed Congress, includes deadlines for a phased U.S. troop withdrawal. The State Department says terror attacks were up 25% worldwide last year over 2005. And the American Lung Association says the Los Angeles area had the nation's worst air from 2003 to 2005. Pittsburgh came in second, with Bakersfield, California, third. In overseas trading, Japan's benchmark Nikkei index closed down 125 points to finish at 17,274. Alexis Christoforous has more on this morning. CBS News Money Watch.
It was an April to remember on Wall Street, the best monthly gain for the Dow and the S&P 500 in nearly 4 years. And it was a history-making month that saw the Dow crack 13,000 for the first time. But stocks closed out the month with a whimper Monday on news that consumer spending slowed last month. The Dow fell 58 points, snapping a 4-day winning streak. The Nasdaq tumbled 32. We'll see if more good earnings news can turn things around. Today we get reports from Procter & Gamble, Sirius Satellite Radio, and Yum Brands, the company that owns KFC and Taco Bell. Google wants to help state governments make public records easier to access online. The internet search giant has partnered with Arizona, California, Utah, and Virginia to allow search engines to access tens of thousands of public records on everything from education to real estate to health care. And it is clearer skies ahead for Delta now that the airline has emerged from bankruptcy 1 year ahead of schedule. Among the changes, a new ad campaign, a new CEO, and a new paint job for its planes. And Chrysler is giving its hybrid engine some more horsepower. The Dodge Durango and Chrysler Aspen SUVs will be available with a hybrid V8 engine in 2008. The hybrid engine claims to improve fuel economy by some 40%. That's your Money Watch. Log on to CBSNews.com for more. In New York, I'm Alexis Christoforous.
Computer technology has enhanced our daily lives in countless ways, including how we entertain ourselves. Internet gaming can be fun and even good exercise for the mind. but a growing number of gamers don't know when to say game over. CBS's Daniel Seberg has more on this growing addiction.
That would be a lot of work for you, huh?
To her son Josh, she's just Mom. In the small Arkansas town where she lives, she's Kay. But it took years for Kay Johnson to admit who she really is.
A recovering addict. I'm a former gaming addict.
She's not talking about gambling, but an addiction to computer games. For nearly 4 years, Kay immersed herself in a never-ending online adventure game called Final Fantasy. Players battle creatures, go on quests, and socialize with others. For Kay, it was all so alluring, she shut out the real world as her internet addiction took over.
My children would come up and talk to me, and I'd say, wait, you know, Mom's busy, I'll be done in just a minute, give Mommy another minute.
Those minutes turned into hours as she played day and night.
It was my world. It was everything that was anything to me. My kids, I loved them, and I would be there for them, but this is where all my time went. Show me.
A problem, considering she has 2 teenage boys, one with special needs.
It was my best friend at one time.
Kay was playing online around 50 hours a week. But incredibly, her husband was playing even more.
I have seen the side of my husband's face and the back of his head probably more than I've seen his face during most of our marriage.
Because he was sitting at the computer all the time.
He's sitting at the computer.
Kay's husband declined to be interviewed on camera, but acknowledged both of them were obsessed by the game. She says they were so obsessed, they both stopped working, sending their finances into a tailspin.
We would take the credit cards and pay like the electric, the light, the groceries, and the rent. And of course that adds up to a lot of money.
Kay's case is extreme. Millions play similar online games, including me, and don't get addicted. Even so, many games are now coming with a warning, like this one, reminding players to have a life. In fact, internet addiction may soon become an official psychiatric diagnosis.
Well, it turns out that internet addiction can be almost identical to other forms of chemical addictions.
Dr. Eric Hollander treats impulsive behavior and says that some people's brains are simply wired in a way that makes them vulnerable to addiction. Whether it's alcohol, cocaine, or even the computer, quitting causes withdrawal.
They can experience all kinds of uncomfortable physical sensations when they try to cut back on their internet usage.
He prescribes counseling and sometimes antidepressants like Lexapro, mood stabilizers like lithium, and opiate blockers like naltrexone. But Kay quit cold turkey, took her anger out on the game.
You actually took the gaming discs and did what with them?
I crushed them.
Kay has decided to file for divorce and is determined to remain game-free. She also wants to send a message that even what looks like child's play must be taken in adult moderation. Daniel Seberg, CBS News, Quitman, Arkansas.
Now a look at your Tuesday morning weather. The latest satellite picture shows clusters of thunderstorms scattered across the southern plains, more clouds forming over the Great Lakes and parts of the northeast, and gray skies along the northwest coastline. Later today, those northwest clouds will produce some showers. However, interior sections along with the southwest will be dry and warm. Meanwhile, the southern and central plains will see more downpours from thunderstorms, while developing showers can be expected across the Great Lakes and portions of the northeast. In sports, the Cleveland Cavaliers found the NBA's Eastern Conference broom closet. The Cavs swept the Washington Wizards to advance to the semifinals. Star LeBron James had 31 points on the night as the Cavs outplayed the Wizards 97-90. They'll play either the Nets or the Raptors. The San Antonio Spurs are a win away from sending the Denver Nuggets packing. The Nuggets blew a 10-point lead in the second half. Tim Duncan led the Spurs with 22 points in their 96-89 victory. They can close out the series tomorrow in Texas. And in baseball, the St. Louis Cardinals got back on the field for the first time since the death of relief pitcher Josh Hancock. The Brewers' Prince Fielder hit a solo homer and scored twice for Milwaukee as the Brewers beat the Cards 7-1.
Fielder, number 6 on the season. He's got 2 runs scored.
Hey guys, thanks for coming.
Are we in trouble?
No, you're not in trouble. I just want to set some ground rules.
Like what?
Well, remember last week when you hit Vinny in the head with the shovel?
I do not recall that.
Of course not. Well, it was pretty graphic. Too graphic for the kids. So I'm going to have to block you.
You know, I got to make this up to you. This is Vinny's watch, and I want you to have it. You deserve it.
Thank you. That's really not necessary.
No, no. Come here.
Hi, Mr. President. My parents believe that eating meals together will make our country strong. Is it something that you did when you were a kid?
I did eat with my family so long as my mother wasn't cooking.
Not good making fun of your mother, even if you are president. But it is good to have dinner with your kids. We know the more often children have dinner with their families, the less likely they are to smoke, drink, and use drugs. So simply having dinner together can help your children forever, even if you're not a great cook.
Public school students won't develop future dreams if they never see the world outside of the classroom. At DonorsChoose.org, teachers list the activities they need funding for. You simply choose what you wish to fund, whether it's a field trip to the aquarium, exploring prehistory with the dinosaurs, or searching the stars at the planetarium. Your donation can help show kids the world that was, that is, and that could be. This is Claire Danes. DonorsChoose.org gives you the power to turn kids into students, one classroom at a time.
Guys, you had to know this was coming.
Actually, we feel blindsided. We just weren't expecting you to block us.
Well, after last week's episode, what am I going to do? There are children in this house, Marcelo. You're telling me you're all going to go straight and start acting like kittens? Stop shivving each other in the prison yard?
Shanking.
What?
It's a verb, to shank.
Look, I'm not asking you to change your ways. I'm just blocking you so the kids can't see. Now, who wants lemonade?
18 days after he was critically injured in a car accident, New Jersey Governor John Corzine was released from the hospital Monday. His SUV, driven by a state trooper, was traveling 91 miles an hour at the time of the crash, and Corzine was not wearing a seatbelt, both violations of state law.
I also understand that I set a very poor example for a lot of young people, a lot of people in general. And I certainly hope the state will forgive me.
It's not clear when Corzine will return to work. One man who was back on the job Monday was White House Press Secretary Tony Snow as he continues treatment for colon cancer. CBS's Jim Axelrod reports.
The president's spokesman came back to work and promptly had trouble stringing two sentences together.
I want to thank everybody in this room. You guys.
Sometimes silence is the most expressive form of communication.
Anybody who does not believe that thoughts and prayers make a difference, they're just wrong.
In the limelight, saying he felt fine and was ready to go.
And for those who are used to seeing members of the press at me or me going back at members of the press, we'll have that entertainment again, trust me.
He'll start chemotherapy this Friday, but his doctors say his new drugs are less debilitating. They may affect his hair a little, but his performance, not at all.
They agree on how to approach it. We'll keep a close watch on it. We'll be really dogged and keeping an eye on things, and if something changes, we need to adjust, we're going to adjust.
At 51, on his second bout with cancer, you might think back to work is the last place Tony Snow would be headed.
There's certain jobs that just give you a zest for everything you do, and this is one of them.
But you'd be wrong.
I won't tell you how it's going to work out because I don't know. In my case, I'm unbelievably lucky and unbelievably blessed. And really happy to be back.
If, as he puts it, the key to beating cancer is heart, then cancer best get ready for a whipping. Jim Axelrod, CBS News, the White House.
Who have survived.
And we thank you for joining us this half hour. This is CBS News Up to the Minute.
CBS News. See it now, anytime, anywhere.
morning. It's Tuesday, May 1st. From CBS News in New York City, I'm Meg Oliver. Here's what's happening. Today, Democratic leaders in Congress will send President Bush a war funding bill that sets timetables for troop withdrawal from Iraq. The timing is no accident. It was 4 years ago today that the president stood on an aircraft carrier under the banner "Mission Accomplished" and declared major combat operations in Iraq had ended. Speaking at the White House Monday, the president repeated that a U.S. troop withdrawal from Iraq is not an option.
I have made my position very clear. The Congress chose to ignore it, and so I will veto the bill. That's not to say that I'm not interested in their opinions. I am. I look forward to working with members of both parties to get a bill that doesn't set artificial timetables and doesn't micromanage.
But the Senate's top Democrat says the news is not getting any better in Iraq. Nevada's Harry Reid is urging the president to reconsider his veto threat. In Iraq, nearly 100 people were killed in the latest series of attacks across the country. The deadliest was in Diyala, where a suicide bomber killed 32 people attending a funeral. April was a deadly month for U.S. forces, 104 dead. 3,351 American servicemen and women have been killed in Iraq since the invasion 4 years ago. Despite Bush administration claims of success in the war on terror, a new State Department report finds terror attacks worldwide are up 25%, the death toll up 40%. Overall, 58,000 people died in terror attacks last year. Most of the 14,000 attacks took place in Iraq and Afghanistan. There are mounting calls for a public inquiry in Britain this morning following the end of that country's biggest terror trial. Turns out British intelligence was aware of connections between the 5 defendants and the deadly attack on London's transit system in 2005. Correspondent Sheila McVicker reports.
They were cruel and ruthless, said the judge. They betrayed their country. The 5 British-born defendants were all found guilty of plotting a massive terror bombing campaign.
We stopped a mass attack on the mainland by what we refer to as homegrown terrorists. That's a great success. We saved hundreds of lives, in my view.
It was Britain's most intensive surveillance operation ever. Investigators bugged more than 90 phone lines, sifted through 27,000 hours of video and audio intercepts, and logged more than 33,000 hours watching the conspirators. The group bought hundreds of pounds of fertilizer, discussed bombing a shopping mall, and were taped talking about blowing up a nightclub.
What were you planning to do there? Blow the whole thing up, right? The biggest nightclub in central London. Now, no one can even turn around and say what they were going to say.
Senior police officers said they linked the would-be bombers directly to al-Qaeda commander Abdul Hadi al-Iraqi, now in U.S. custody in Guantanamo. But the sentences are little comfort to the families of the 52 people who died in the deadly attacks on London's transit system on July 7, 2005. That attack occurred more than a year after the fertilizer plot was first exposed. During that investigation, Britain's domestic security service, MI5, videotaped, followed home, and listened in on 2 of the men who ultimately became suicide bombers on July 7th. The head of MI5 said today it was impossible to follow up on everyone who appeared at the, quote, periphery of an investigation. But the families of the victims of 7/7 are demanding to know why British intelligence failed to act. Sheila McVicker, CBS News, London.
President Bush continues to back embattled World Bank President Paul Wolfowitz. The president says Wolfowitz should be given a fair hearing about the way he arranged a promotion and pay raise for his girlfriend. Wolfowitz refuses to resign, saying he's the victim of a smear campaign. The bank's 24-member board is expected to decide his fate later this week. Meanwhile, President Hugo Chavez has announced Venezuela is pulling out of the World Bank and International Monetary Fund. The move is symbolic because Venezuela has paid off its debts to both institutions. There's a lot of anticipation in Cuba. Reports there say Fidel Castro may lead today's May Day celebration. He's been out of the public eye since he had intestinal surgery 9 months ago. Correspondent Laura Logan is in Havana.
Just as Cubans are hoping that Fidel Castro will make his first public appearance since falling ill 9 months ago, people here have been enraged by the reemergence of one of his oldest and most hated enemies. Luis Posada Carriles is to Cubans their Osama bin Laden, accused of blowing up this plane in 1976 when all 73 people on board were killed, and for a string of other hotel bombings that claimed innocent lives in what was supposed to be a fight against Fidel Castro. Watching the former CIA agent and aging exile walk free from a U.S. prison was the last thing Cubans wanted to see, even though he's in Miami awaiting trial for entering the U.S. illegally. Cubans want him to face terrorism charges. Outraged, they've taken to the streets here in silent protest day after day. Camilo Arroyo was 5 when he lost his father on the airline bombing. Posado showed no regret, and now he says he sleeps like a baby. But I haven't slept that way since he killed my father, he told us. People here accuse the U.S. of hypocrisy, asking how America can condemn countries who harbor terrorists while refusing to hand over Cuba's most wanted terrorists. Cubans say if there's one thing that could get Fidel Castro out of bed and into public tomorrow after so long, it's his anger at the idea that Posada could get off scot-free. Laura Logan, CBS News, Havana.
5 weeks after the surgery that found cancer had spread to his liver, White House Press Secretary Tony Snow was back on the job. Snow told reporters it's great to be back and acknowledged the support of the often adversarial White House press corps.
Anybody who does not believe that thoughts and prayers make a difference are just wrong.
The 51-year-old starts chemotherapy on Friday, hoping to throw the cancer into remission and transform it into a chronic disease. Governor Jon Corzine of New Jersey is out of the hospital 19 days after he was critically injured in a car accident. Corzine was not wearing a seatbelt, a violation of state law. As he left the hospital, the governor was emotional and apologetic.
I set a very poor example for a lot of young people, a lot of people in general. And I certainly hope the state will forgive me. And I'll work very hard to try to set the right kind of example.
Corzine faces a lengthy recovery. He broke his left femur, his sternum, and 11 ribs in the accident. We're back in a minute.
America's veterans have come from all walks of life and every corner of the nation to bravely serve in protecting our way of life. It is the privilege of VA to return that service with the excellent health care that our veterans have earned. And it is the nurses of VA, men and women of all backgrounds, who help to make that quality health care possible by providing a vital service to the community, by sharing ideas in a supportive, professional environment, by giving the best of themselves every day, and by advancing to the top of their field. But most of all, by providing excellent and direct care to every one of their patients.
We are the nurses of VA.
VA Nursing, a career in caring. For more information, contact vacareers.com.
Keep a great thing growing, America. Tree City, USA. The Arbor Day Foundation invites you to put down roots and plant trees in your community. You'll see an amazing transformation. Trees clear the air, clean the water, and conserve energy. As much as we need trees, we need to plan, plant, and care for them. Support Tree City, USA, where you live. Go to arborday.org to learn which trees to plant where and how to care for them. At arborday.org, you can contact your state forester for community forestry assistance.
Of the Arbor Day Foundation, glamorous season rock the nation. Plant a tree today for all the world to share.
Keep a great thing growing, America. Tree City, USA. Car insurance.
It's 40 past the hour. Members of the animal feed industry in China are admitting they've used the chemical melamine as an additive for years to save money. That chemical, now banned by the Chinese government, is suspected of sickening and killing dogs and cats in this country. CBS's Barry Peterson has more.
By some reports, melamine was, until now, a commonly used additive for wheat gluten exported from factories like this one in Shandong province to the U.S. for pet food. Melamine is a cheap way to fake high protein levels in wheat gluten. The Chinese government, moving to protect its multi-billion-dollar exports of fruits and vegetables, has now banned melamine and shuttered plants that may have used it. China insists every container with agricultural products is inspected. But the reality, experts tell CBS News, is that serious spot checks are rare. So buyers and even the government come here, perhaps the most sophisticated private lab in the country for checking foods, especially for pesticides, the #1 problem. Here they believe that foreign companies buying the goods have more leverage than the government.
If I am a supplier in China, I'm going to react much more if my customer tells me I need to improve what I am doing and they want to make sure I am doing a safe job.
Most farms are tiny, a third of an acre, selling to a world where every country has different regulations like how much and what kind of pesticide can be used. It's not just what Chinese farmers are putting on their crops. It's also what this country's industry is spewing into the air and dumping into the water that is threatening China's food supply. 10% of China's arable land is now badly polluted. Cities like this one let chemicals run in the streets and clog up the rivers.
What's in those rivers is largely industrial, and that then is being used to irrigate crops.
China wants to be food exporter to the world, an ambition that may falter if it cannot convince the world its products are as safe as they are cheap. Barry Peterson, CBS News, Shandong Province, China.
On this morning's CBS Health Watch, things that are safe and cheap could be hurting your children's teeth. After declining for 40 straight years, the number of preschoolers with tooth decay has risen to 28%. The government study blames processed sugar snacks, juice boxes, and using bottled water rather than tap water, which contains fluoride. Also on this morning's Health Watch, a warning for older people with implantable defibrillators. The devices have allowed thousands of people with heart problems to live longer, but the new problem is some defibrillators are breaking down with age. CBS's Dr. Malika Marshall explains.
Implantable defibrillators can be a lifesaver for heart patients. The tiny battery pack is implanted in the chest, powering 2 electrical leads in the heart. When the heart beats abnormally, the leads sense it and shock the heart back to a normal rhythm. 10 years ago, Charles Carter got one and believes it saved his life more than once.
I've had been shocked about maybe about 8 times probably.
Now a new study from the American Heart Association is delivering a different kind of shock. Researchers found those leads that fire life-saving electricity can break down over time.
The incidence of lead failures in this single center study was quite high, and I think they may be higher than many of us have anticipated.
It seems the older the leads, the more likely to malfunction. When researchers looked at patients with 10-year-old leads, they found that 1 out of 5 had become defective. The good news here, a simple diagnostic test like this can detect a defect. And St. Luke's Dr. Jonathan Steinberg says newer devices come with remotes that can alert patients of a problem 24/7.
Even if these malfunctions do occur, they can be picked up in advance of causing any serious problem to the individual patient.
Replacing the leads requires surgery, which offers its own risks. But in most cases, that risk is outweighed by the reward of having a defibrillator that works properly.
The bottom line is defibrillators save lives.
Charles is living proof of that. Dr. Malika Marshall, CBS News.
We'll be right back. You're watching CBS News Up to the Minute.
Perfect.
Hi, Mom! Ever wish you had the strength to quickly trap the little messes in your house? Fact. Lysol sanitizing wipes with new, stronger microlock fibers are made to trap and hold the messes. Now they clean baked-on grease better than Clorox wipes. Plus, Lysol kills 99.9% of germs and viruses. Now available in great value refill packs. Lysol. Disinfect to protect.
Ask your health
healthcare provider about controlled release formula Ambien CR. Then call or visit ambiencr.com for this limited time 7-day free trial offer. It's the only sleep aid with 2 layers of sleep relief. The first dissolves quickly to help you fall asleep fast. Plus, unlike other sleep medications, there's a second layer. It dissolves slowly to help you stay asleep. Ambien CR is a treatment option you and your healthcare provider can consider along with lifestyle changes and can be taken for as long as your healthcare provider recommends. Until you know how Ambien CR will affect you, you shouldn't drive or operate machinery. Be sure you're able to devote 7 to 8 hours to sleep before being active again. Side effects may include next-day drowsiness, dizziness, and headache. It's not narcotic. However, like most sleep medicines, it has some risk of dependency. Don't take it with alcohol. So call today or visit ambiencr.com for a 7-day free trial offer of Ambien CR for a good night's sleep from start to finish.
Easy Off Bam Power Cleaner has the power to remove stains like soap scum. Just spray and wipe wherever there's soap scum. Remove soap scum. Better than scrubbing bubbles. Better than scrubbing bubbles. Bam, bam, tiles, tubs, shower doors, sinks. Bam, bam, tiles, tubs, shower doors, sinks. It even has the power to remove mine scale. The power has the power to remove mine scale. Just spray it on and look at that shine. Look at that shine. Easy off, easy off, easy off. Bam! And you're done.
Coming up, think you know Miami? Don't count on it, but you will when we take you behind the scenes of CSI Miami with stars David Caruso and Jonathan Togo on The Early Show.
Internet porn. Tens of millions of computer users visit the sites, and many actually get addicted. Mark did.
It's just you and the computer. There is no one to tell you no.
Tonight, why it happens and what one group is doing to fight back. If you have a computer, don't miss our series, Caught in the Web, on the CBS Evening News with Katie Couric.
You're going behind the scenes of CSI Miami, coming up on The Early Show.
Republicans looking to move into the Oval Office when George W. Bush moves out will face off in their first debate Thursday. Last week, 8 Democratic candidates took the stage in South Carolina for their first debate. Among those watching the South Carolina State University Theater was Vaughn Berbers, senior political editor of CBSNews.com. Vaughn joins us from our Washington Bureau with more on that and a look ahead at the GOP contest. Good morning, Vaughn.
Good morning, Meg.
Before we get to the Republicans, how did the Democrats do, and do you think anyone really stood out from the pack?
Well, I'm not sure that anybody really stood out and made a difference. I think what it did was reinforced sort of the idea that a lot of Democrats in South Carolina and around the nation have already of a field that is pretty heavily set at this point in time with Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama as the sort of 2 front runners. Edwards not too awfully far behind those 2, and then some pretty heavyweight candidates even there. When I talked to voters and delegates to the state convention, which was also held in South Carolina this weekend, everybody told me over and over again, whether they were a supporter, lukewarm or strong of one candidate or another, all commented on basically the strength of the field, saying that, well, they may prefer Obama or Clinton. They really felt like most of these people could do the job, and they were very, very excited about this field that they have and the position that they find themselves in their party right now.
Well, do you expect the Republican candidates to begin to break with the Bush administration this Thursday, and do they need to?
I don't think you'll hear a lot of overt breaking. These candidates have already distanced themselves to some degree from particularly the war in Iraq when it comes to the way that the war's been managed. Nobody's been more of a supporter or more of an opponent of that mismanagement than John McCain in his view. So you'll hear probably a little more emphasis on the mistakes that have been made, but I don't think you're going to hear a lot of people outwardly distancing themselves on many issues. Immigration might be an issue where you're going to hear a lot of different voices and a big wide gulf of opinion.
A recent Quinnipiac poll of swing states had some good news for Rudy Giuliani and for Al Gore, who has not announced his candidacy. First, do you think Giuliani will further cement his perceived role as frontrunner Thursday night? And second, would a Gore announcement surprise you?
Well, you know, we keep hearing these rumors about Al Gore putting out feelers or people close to him out there sort of gauging the temperature of the waters. We haven't seen any evidence at this point that he's really seriously considering it, but he is somebody who could get into this race very late in the game, late in the fall.
How late?
Probably as close, you know, even up to maybe Halloween. I think we'll probably be seeing the New Hampshire filing deadline a little bit before that point in time, maybe late October. he can wait all the way almost till the filing deadline in New Hampshire to get in. The longer it goes, however, I think, and the less sort of concrete steps he takes, I think the less likely that's going to be. Rudy Giuliani, like all these other candidates in the Republican Party, John McCain, Mitt Romney especially, have a lot of convincing to do to core members of their own party. Rudy might be leading in these polls at the moment, but there still remains this undercurrent of unease about the people in the field. That's why, again, today we heard more reports coming out, and yesterday and the day before, about a possible candidacy by Fred Thompson, the former senator from Tennessee, and that indicates to me that there really is some unease still, and they're still searching around for some candidates. We might see more people in the Republican field instead of the Democratic field.
Switching gears a little bit, the White House says it will veto the war funding bill today, the 4th anniversary of the president's mission accomplished speech ending major combat operations in Iraq. When do you expect we'll see a funding bill that will get signed?
Boy, I don't know. The president says he wants to sit down with these Democrats. Democrats feeling is sort of in high gear right now, feeling like they may have the cards to put on the table a little bit. It's hard to see how this one doesn't get done at some point. You've had some Democratic leaders in the Senate saying that this is going to be funded one way or another, and they're going to get this thing done. I think what this does is it may ratchet up the pressure on the administration. We heard some talk earlier over the weekend that they were going to look at how the results, how the surge is going sometime in September. Now we're starting to hear administration officials say even closer to that. So it may ratchet up the pressure on the administration for that.
All right, get up-to-the-minute news about the race for the White House at CBSNews.com. Senior political editor Vaughn Bervers, thank you.
Thanks, Meg.
One of the hot-button issues this campaign season is the environment and our need to reduce our consumption of fossil fuels. Answering that call, there are already several electric cars in development in the U.S. But a particularly powerful one that's already on the market is spinning heads while it burns rubber. CBS's Manuel Gallegos checked it out.
Amid the noise and congestion of New York City, it whizzes down Park Avenue quietly and Ferrari fast. And there's no gas, no exhaust. The Tesla Roadster is electric, Silicon Valley's bold first step into the auto industry.
It's not a gimmick and it's not a sort of a niche car. Just, you know, sell a few of them and call it a day. Really, our business model and our business plans are to be a major car manufacturer.
The company believes the time is finally right for an electric car. Finally, battery technology that supports a plug instead of a gas cap.
The car runs on a 900-pound lithium-ion battery, the same kind of battery as in an iPod or...
A full charge takes about 7 hours, but for the first time, you can plug in to a regular home socket.
I'll plug it in right next to my BlackBerry and my Macintosh.
The price tag is jolting for the little sports car, nearly $100,000. Still, some 400 of the Hollywood and Silicon Valley who's who have put down deposits, from Arnold Schwarzenegger to the founders of Google.
Very nice. Here we go.
30-year-old Josh Kazam will be one of the first New Yorkers to get one this fall.
I just think it's the wave of the future.
His vision for a new generation, a less smoggy, less noisy Manhattan filled with recharging stations. A big green apple taking a bite out of the gas guzzlers. Manuel Gallegos, CBS News, New York.
Moving over to the slow lane, a high school competition in Indiana has produced vehicles that not only do not guzzle gas, they barely sip it. These lightweight three-wheeled vehicles average over 1,000 miles to the gallon. One of them even topped out at 1,600 miles to the gallon. As you can see, these cars aren't built for speed. Each competitor had to make at least 10 laps around the oval, averaging just 15 miles per hour. Now a look at your Tuesday morning weather. The latest satellite picture shows clusters of thunderstorms are scattered across the southern plains, but in the southeast, skies are clear. Elsewhere, clouds are forming over the Great Lakes and parts of the northeast, while it's also very gray along the northwest coastline. Later today, those northwest clouds will produce some showers. However, interior sections along the southwest will be dry and warm. Meanwhile, the southern and central plains will see more downpours from thunderstorms, while the rest of the deep south and southeast remain sunny and hot. Elsewhere, developing showers can be expected across the Great Lakes and portions of the northeast.
You had to know this was coming.
Actually, we feel blindsided. We just weren't expecting you to block us.
Well, after last week's episode, what am I going to do? There are children in this house, Marcelo. You're telling me you're all going to go straight and start acting like kittens? Stop shivving each other in the prison yard?
Shanking.
What?
It's a verb. To shank.
Look, I'm not asking you to change your ways. I'm just blocking you so the kids can't see. Now, who wants lemonade?
I was a well-educated, well-schooled person who knew the risk of HIV, and I caught it. If someone came up to me and said that HIV can't happen to me, I would say it can happen to anybody. No one is invincible. No one is immune from it. Anyone can get HIV.
Bipolar disorder is a brain condition that causes unusual or dramatic mood swings. It affects millions of Americans and compromises their ability to function. When diagnosed, bipolar disorder can be effectively treated by mood stabilizers. But most people with bipolar disorder suffer for years without help because the symptoms are missed or confused with other illnesses like depression. Learn how easily you can help keep this from happening to a loved one. Visit cbscares.tv.
Today is the deadline for high school students to choose which of their college offers to accept. For them, it's the end of a high-pressure race. However, it's also apparently the end of a career for one respected dean of admissions who advocated taking the heat off of students in the application process and found herself coming under fire last week. CBS's Randall Pinkston has the story.
On the campus of MIT, the revelation that Dean of Admissions Marilee Jones had repeatedly lied on her resume first shocked, then angered students.
I mean, once I'll call it a mistake, and I'll give you that, but she never came forward and she never fixed it, and she had plenty of years to do that.
For her first job, MIT says Jones didn't need a college degree, but claimed to have one. As she moved up the career ladder, eventually becoming Dean of Admissions, Jones never revealed the truth. In her resignation statement, Jones wrote, "I misrepresented my academic degrees when I first applied to MIT 28 years ago, and did not have the courage to correct my resume when I applied for my current job or any time since."
I want us to start another revolution tonight.
But it's not her resume that brought Jones to national prominence. It's her unconventional message to parents and students about the college admissions process.
I think the whole system has gone a little bit haywire.
Jones believes students are under too much academic pressure at an early age. Last year, she told correspondent Russ Mitchell her epiphany came from her own daughter.
She's a 7th grader, and I'm going on about, you're going to get into college, you got to get into college. And within a few weeks, she started to get stomach pains.
Guidance counselors welcomed Jones' message then and hope that it won't be lost in the uproar over her credentials.
Telling us to let students know to enjoy their lives now, that it's okay to make a mistake.
And colleagues at other colleges believe her perspective will survive.
The message is not lost at all, even in this turn, because the message is bigger than Marilee Jones.
Marilee Jones' message is also about human frailty, that no one is perfect. That message, too, now part of her legacy. Randall Pinkston, CBS News, New York.
And we thank you for joining us this half hour. This is CBS News Up to the Minute.
Internet porn. Tens of millions of computer users visit the sites, and many actually get addicted. Mark did.
It's just you and the computer. There is no one to tell you no.
Tonight, why it happens and what one group is doing to fight back. If you have a computer, don't miss our series, Caught in the Web, on the CBS Evening News with Katie Couric. CBS News. See it now, anytime, anywhere.
Now on CBS News, Up to the Minute.
We stopped a mass attack on the mainland by what we refer to as homegrown terrorists.
5 would-be bombers are convicted in Britain's biggest and longest terror trial.
I would ask the press and the media to put aside the titillation of the who's list.
In Washington is awash in a sex scandal as an accused D.C. madam releases her phone records. morning from CBS News headquarters in New York. This is Up to the Minute. I'm Meg Oliver. Former Deputy Secretary of State Randall Tobias has some explaining to do after he was identified as one client of a multi-million-dollar escort service accused of supplying sexual services to Washington power brokers. Tobias was in charge of U.S. foreign aid until he abruptly quit his State Department job Friday. He claims he was paying for massages, no sex, he says. The woman accused of running the prostitution ring has turned over her phone records to journalists. The list of customers reportedly includes a Bush administration economist, lobbyists, military officials, a top CEO, and the head of a conservative think tank. CBS's Bob Orr has more.
In a city that runs on rumors and caters to clout, Deborah Jean Palfrey is an emerging force. The so-called D.C. Madam is accused of running a high-class prostitution ring, netting $2 million by providing call girls to the powerful and the connected. Now her phone records have customers shaking in high places.
I would ask the press and the media to put aside the titillation of the who's list.
Fat chance. After failing to sell the phone logs in an effort to raise money for legal fees, Palfrey now has given 4 years' worth of records to a national news organization, hoping reporters can match the numbers to names.
Jean never kept a black book. She kept telephone records. And from those records, significant resources are required to call the identities of the individuals who are making the phone calls.
Palfrey's hoping some of those individuals will be witnesses who can refute charges that she ran a sex-for-sale operation by phone from this house near San Francisco. The government charges Palfrey worked as a prostitution broker, putting callers from the D.C. area in touch with available escorts, more than 130 women over 13 years. So far, 2 of Washington's powerful have been outed as alleged customers. Deputy Secretary of State Randall Tobias, who resigned on Friday, and Harlan Ullman, a military consultant who helped create the shock and awe strategy for the Iraq War. The case is reminiscent of so-called Hollywood Madam Heidi Fleiss. She was accused of running a prostitution ring, servicing stars from the world of entertainment. Fleiss eventually went to prison for tax evasion. Now Palfrey is trying to beat her own rap. She denies trying to blackmail former clients, but makes no apologies for asking the media to help her identify her own customers.
I must rely upon your acumen and talent here in the press and the media to uncover the truth.
But in doing that, other big names may still emerge, so the Capitol now is waiting for the next high-heeled shoe to drop. Bob Orr, CBS News, Washington.
Also in Washington, President Bush's threatened veto of a war funding bill could come as soon as today. Congress has approved another $100 billion to fund the conflict through September. But come October 1st, U.S. troops would have to begin a phased withdrawal. A possible compromise includes benchmarks the Iraqi government would have to reach for continued U.S. military and financial support. A new report by the State Department shows the United States could be losing the war on terror. Worldwide terror attacks are up 25% over last year, which at the time set the record. CBS's David Martin reports.
Figures compiled by the National Counterterrorism Center, the organization created to lead the war on terror, provide a discouraging answer to the question, are we winning? More than 14,000 terrorist attacks recorded in 2006, up 25% from the year before. More than 20,000 killed, up 40%. The number injured, up 54%. Nearly half the attacks occurred in Iraq.
The vast majority of the victims were innocent civilians, and a majority of them were Muslims. Attacks on children were up more than 80%, if you can imagine, with more than 1,800 children killed or injured in terrorist attacks in 2006.
The report claims tighter border controls have limited the movement of terrorists, but says al-Qaeda is changing its tactics. Instead of infiltrating teams like the 9/11 hijackers into a country, it now relies on homegrown terrorists for operations like the London Heathrow bomb plot against airliners. The report also notes a dangerous new tactic, putting chemicals into some of the bombs going off in Iraq. If you don't count the more than 900 U.S. troops killed last year, the number of Americans to die in terrorist attacks is relatively small, 28, mostly in Iraq. But in his 60 Minutes interview, former CIA Director George Tenet told of a plot to stage a gas attack on the New York City subway system that was called off by al-Qaeda's number 2 man, Ayman al-Zawahiri, quote, because we have something better in mind. In an unaired portion of that interview, Tennant revealed what that something might have been.
I've got people telling me in 2003 that Al-Qaeda is looking for a Russian suitcase nuke in Saudi Arabia.
There's no evidence Al-Qaeda ever got one of those suitcase nukes, but there is evidence every day in Iraq that if it ever does, it won't hesitate to use it. David Martin, CBS News, the Pentagon.
The British government is claiming a victory in the war on terror with the conviction of 5 would-be bombers who were arrested before their plot got off the ground. CBS's Charlie D'Agata has details.
A haunting image of an Al-Qaeda terrorist inspecting a deadly concoction designed to devastate Britain. 1,300 pounds of fertilizer to pack bombs targeting a crowded shopping mall, power plants, and a famous London nightclub. Planned revenge for Britain's support of the United States after the September 11th attacks.
What are you planning to do there? Blow the whole thing up, right? The biggest nightclub in central London. Now, no one can even turn around and say, oh, they were innocent.
Those secret MI5 recordings were part of 35,000 hours of evidence that helped convict 5 British Muslim men of plotting to kill their fellow citizens.
We stopped a mass attack on the mainland by what we refer to as homegrown terrorists. That's a great success. We saved hundreds of lives.
But counterterrorism agents failed to stop another plot, the deadly 2005 bombings on London's transit system. There are links between the fertilizer gang and at least 2 of the suicide bombers. At a training camp in Pakistan, Omar Khayyam, the fertilizer bomb plotter, and 7/7 suicide bomber Mohammed Sadiq Khan were taught how to use guns and explosives. Back in the UK, there were more meetings between the terror cells, some recorded by MI5 agents. Police say at the time there was no way of knowing the subway bombings that killed 52 people were being planned. And although these terrorists will spend life behind bars, the trial revealed how closely linked Al-Qaeda groups can be, raising fears that plans for another attack could already be underway. Charlie D'Agata, CBS News, London.